Invisible Soldiers podcast.
Welcome to the Invisible Soldiers podcast. I'm Corey.
I'm Rebecca.
And thanks for making us your go-to podcast for Black conversations and advertising. Today, we're joined by a guest of the pod, Daidria Grayson, to cover a plethora of subjects, including the ripple effects tariffs may be having on the ad industry. Thanks for joining and welcome everybody to the pod. What up, y'all?
What up, Doe?
What up, Doe?
Daidria, you back?
I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be back. Thank you for having me again.
A little afternoon chat with a little sippage, you know? Cheers.
Well, afternoon brunching. Cheers, y'all.
There we go.
Directions. Cheers.
How's everybody been?
It's been an odd 120 days in 2025. It was so different in December.
It's been
She's jumping off the
whole
top
years.
rope in the first minute. Oh man. Yeah, it's a crazy time for sure. And we got a lot to cover. I want to start though by talking about what's in your glass, because with the tariffs being, such a topic, and we're about to jump into that. One of the biggest industries being affected is the spirits and wine industry. And I know a lot of people, the things that they love to drink, they are going to start having to uppay for these things. And different people in the world aren't going to be able to get them based on whatever the retaliation is. So let's all go around and give a little shout out to what we're sipping.
Yeah, who's first?
Shall I go first? I'll go
Sure.
first.
Come on, Dage.
Well, I was friends call me Sidecar Dage. And it's been a minute since I've made a sidecar because of the times that we are in. I'm trying not to have large bottles of liquor in the house because I'm trying to manage the intake. But today, while it's not a Black-owned brand, it is a Black household staple. It's 1738, triple sec, and some fresh lemon juice in my sidecar. So that's what I'm sipping on this Sunday afternoon.
1738. That was in a song, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Fetty Wap.
Yes. Cheers to you. Well, I do have a Black-owned brand in my glass. I'm having an afternoon mimosa with the McBride Sisters champagne. I'm a bubbly kind of lady, so I actually love all of their brands. I think it's incredible that one, they are a main staple in the champagne industry. We know that that's a very exclusive space, but they're all over. Like I started drinking McBride Sisters when I lived in Chicago. You could catch them in Target, although we don't go there anymore. But you can catch them in most grocery stores. They're at my Meijer up the street in Detroit. So shout out and cheers to the McBride Sisters. Thank you for a delicious mimosa.
Ooh. And
What
then
you got?
finally,
What you drinking,
I'm
Corey?
drinking a little Brut Rosé, which is just like great. Although it is a cold day in Dallas right now, so that's a little weird. But I'm drinking Olima. I don't know if you can see it. It might be, the light might be off. It's Olima. It's a Brut Rosé. It's a Cremant. And it's Olima is their sister brand is Amici Cellars out of Calistoga, California. And my wife actually represents this brand. So she was the one who put me onto it. It's become a little bit of our house bubbles, if you will. So yeah, if you haven't had
House
it, check
bubbles.
it out.
I like that.
I
for
know.
sure. When we went to France, they were like, the problem with you Americans is y'all like to put wine up on a shelf and look at it. They was like, we just drink it. They was like, it's all table wine to us. So I was like, you know what? It's all table wine. So yeah, we don't look at wine over here. We drink it.
Same. Proof why I belong probably over in France part-time.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Let's get into it. Tariffs are the big subject happening in the news and politics, in our industry and other industries. It's not only affecting big companies, but also a lot of smaller mom and pop companies. My wife has a friend who is pretty much having to potentially bail on her business just because of where she sources her materials from and what the uptick to now pay for those said materials are going to be moving forward, right? And I know a lot of people who are dealing with this similar issue because they've been buying things from Asia and China and South America, and now it's no longer cheap to get those products. Now they're having to pay like way up for it, and it might not be worth continuing their businesses. So, first of all, what are your thoughts just about like how this is changing everything?
My first thought is I'm just going to make it plain for the business owners out there and for the customers, they suck. Because the question is always who will ultimately absorb the cost of the tariffs? Will it be the business or will it be the customer? And 9 times out of 10, we're definitely going to feel the effects in a time where we're expecting a recession mid year. And there's just less disposable income out there. So tariffs are awful if they are not used fairly or properly. I will say, if you all remember during COVID, where a lot of Black owned businesses launched, right? There was a lot of efforts to help extend the financial runway for Black owned businesses and even contribute to the launch of new Black owned businesses that had the potential to scale in larger retailers like Target and Walmart, or even drug and convenience like CVS and Walgreens. And so I remember seeing a lot of spirits brands launch and a lot of coffee brands launch and a lot of fashion lines launch. And I think it was Sergio Hudson who has his amazing line. He styled Michelle Obama, Kerry Washington, and other notable women of Hollywood and Washington, D.C. And he just made it plain that a lot of the sources that fashion designers, Black and other, get their materials are now cost prohibitive. Same thing with coffee. A lot of the sources from coffee are from Vietnam or South America, or other countries that provide a delicious and delightful bean. And unfortunately, a lot of those Black entrepreneurs who had just passed the point of entry finally and overcome that barrier to enter the coffee industry are now trying to figure out, can they sustain themselves over the next 3 years. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to our businesses, and if there will be any emergency capital available to keep us afloat. The other piece that I wanted to share with you all is my aunt works for a company down in Florida, and they provide auto parts, specifically shocks, out of Central Florida. And they have already made a statement that they plan to absorb the cost of tariffs, so they don't pass it on to the everyday person that's calling down from New York, like, hey, you got a shock for my 88 bins, that I can't find anywhere. Again, the smaller businesses, thankfully, some may be in a position to be able to absorb, but others may not, and it might be us.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that trickles down into our industry. Some of us who work in agencies with major auto clients. I think we felt the pressure in 2020 just in general of delayed shipping. I feel like we just got caught up. And here we are now. And, kind of being in that first quarter, scopes are being signed. There's just a lot of unknowns of where it's going to hit our bottom line and how that will shake. Again, staffing. I feel like we will start to see people moving around based on where all this stuff shakes out. So from the shock to the, tire to the humans that will be impacted by these shifts and changes. And then also the relationships too, which is kind of odd being an American person and watching people talk about this space that we're in, and how we are all absorbing something that it feels like we didn't sign up for, but we did sign up for, is a very strange place to be in.
Yeah, and it's always about the ripple effect. If you think, I mean, think about something that affected us, 2008, right? Um, when that financial crisis happened, and we started seeing all of these major automakers filing for bankrupt, right? Well, the government knew that these businesses were too important to the fabric of the country to let them fail. They bailed them out because they understood what that ripple effect would do to the rest of the entire economy, right? Same thing with Fannie Mae, right? We saw what happened with that situation. So I think a lot of this is posturing, but I think once you start to see people stop spending money and start to hold on a little tighter, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on people who voted for that president, because it's going to affect their pockets, and then they are going to start making a lot of noise, right? Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting, but the ripple effect is, it can touch a lot of people in this country, and I don't think that a lot of businesses are going to allow one person to create that much chaos.
And remember, to your point, Corey, that ripple effect is fast. So I
Yes,
always tell
no,
the story about 2008, when I think I had just left Kimberly Wald in 2007, and I was working Rebecca with Maroc and McDonald's. And one minute you saw traffic in Detroit going downtown and sitting in traffic on the lodge on 10, and literally the next week there was no traffic
yeah, that's
because
how quick people will hold
that's
on
how
to their
quick
cash. Yeah,
and that's how quick corporations will ultimately try to protect that P&L and immediately cut back. We saw plant workers being the most impacted because they were not called in to shift, and or they were laid off, or how was it referred to when
Furloughed? Were they
furloughed?
furloughed?
Yep, they were furloughed. And then, thank you, Rebecca. They were furloughed and then hoping that they would be called back. Some weren't called back. Some were offered an immediate buyout. No one really knew what to do. So a lot of the times, we hope that it's a little bit of posturing, Corey, but the reality is the moment that those cutbacks start, it's an immediate effect for people that look like us. And then remember, back in the day too, auto business and ad agencies were split between brand and retail. I know you guys remember because y'all my OGs. But like then after that, they shrunk the business into just brand or project work. So now that there's no cushion, if you will, in the business, where do you cut but the business itself? Or the scopes and the retainers itself. And that's the thing that's really making me nervous for agencies is, now it's not just, oh, well, we'll just cover retail and brand. We've been doing that. Or we'll just hire a small agency now to handle it on a, micro level. They've already stopped doing that. So then what else? What else?
what else is there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Hey.
curious what else is there too. Like, I mean, when we see like the contract expand for auto, like I mean, you can't just cut out the marketing. I mean, it's like the driver for purchase. So it will be interesting to see again how much one can cut it to the bone. Also, who are the clients? Like I know in my world, the clients move around a bit depending on the industry, and if they are true marketers, that's always a challenge in terms of the types of service that they will ask agencies to provide for them. And then also, as we move into the future, what can we provide for clients that they see the ROI, and what are the stories we tell? How do we do it? What are the tools? Um, again, it used to just be so like it felt cyclical. Like I know that this is going to happen, and this quarter everybody's going to get. I have no idea now. Like people ask all the time, like, do you have any thoughts or a POV on what's next, but it is a new day every single day.
As always, though, whenever we, come up with new hurdles in the road, that's usually when some breakthrough innovation happens, right? Like that's when we become the most creative. That's when we put on our black thinking cap and like create that new shit, you know? So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. And one of the ways that people are starting to be even more creative is in AI, right? I sent y'all that video I saw from the on Instagram. It's a account called Fat Fellas, and
Yes,
it
yes, yes.
was the craziest, wildest, blackest AI stuff I'd seen in a long time. But it's really cool just to see people going there and trying new things in AI.
Yeah, it's been super inspiring to see visually people create, whether it's a 30-second vignette or whatever, of Black people, not just in the future, but like also as showing up in the past.
Hmm.
Especially because as we watch erasure happen, literally, monuments being taken down, all of the George Floyd stuff taken down, it's been incredible to see what happens inside of the technology, to see photos of like Tulsa, like how they come alive, or like the blending of like Americana, little Afrofuturism. I'm sure you guys have seen all those, show up on Instagram. One of the things that we are trying to achieve in our agency is to create really culture around AI, to really be the stewards of how to use this tool, in a million different workflows, right? Like it can't always just be about a creative output or things like that. Like how do we infuse it, or how in the day to day? So how do we become more efficient? What does that look like? Trying to stay ahead of the curve. I saw a little news snippet around China that like they are having their kindergartners or early education get into AI, like learning how to use it at a very early age. To me, that signifies a thought process around being thoughtful about this tool. So, I'm constantly trying to tell people, especially, in our age bracket, to like, don't be scared. Like, you got to jump in. You got to jump in.
Yeah. And speaking of jumping in, first, I want to give a shout out to myself for using ChatGPT for the first time last week.
Ooh, small steps, baby
Small
steps.
steps, baby
There you go.
steps. And of course, that is with the understanding that we've been using AI forever, whether it's in programmatic and retargeting, whether it's in the capture of humanity, whether it's in messaging and just simply like if you're in comms, talking points, press releases, et cetera, it's how to streamline bios, resumes, et cetera. But for those of us, you may see the books behind me who like to be able to go to your book and flip to page 68 and find that footnote that tells you what happened around Tulsa, or, with a certain, leader, of our history, or person. There's an integrity that you want to protect. And that if there's a fear of anything at this point, is making sure that our cultural integrity is intact. So I think that AI has enormous potential when used well and used correctly, and creatively. But for us, I think that we need proper stewardship to make sure, and guidance or guardrails to make sure that we're well represented and protected, in our past, present, and future. I also want to give a shout out to Tiffany Joseph, because Tiffany Joseph has been experimenting with AI. I think she even just won a AI Film Festival award, because she's been creating shorts with her, and I think she's working on a full feature length script. And she's been sharing them on LinkedIn. Beautifully done. So I just want to give her a shout out, in terms of how showing us the way and how AI can be used in real time, but be used well.
One of the coolest stories that I've heard about AI is um, local rapper for me in Dallas, the DOC, who lost his voice back in, I think it was like 88 or 89.
Yeah.
Well, now with AI and being able to give it a prompt and get like basically load in all of his old vocals, there might be new music coming from him, is something that I saw.
But see,
So that could be really cool.
that could be really cool since he's alive.
Yeah, and
Remember
able
when
to actually lean into it, right? So it's not like it's taking anything away from him, but um, that could be something really cool with AI, you know. And I'm looking for stuff like that, right? Like, are there ways to, with the permission of the people who own the entity, to expand it, right? Could I, if I'm the Whitney Houston estate, could I come up with a new Whitney Houston album with new producers and songwriters with the help of all the work she's done before? Would we be open to what? Because I personally feel like, as consumers, as emotional consumers, I watch the way people light up when they see the old Michael Jackson, like how
Hmm.
Michael Jackson would look at 65 and all of that stuff, right? Is there a way for those estates to monetize new things using AI?
I think yes, but the human in me is concerned. And Daedra, I don't know if you were going here, but like, remember when we brought Tupac back to life?
that's where I was going. That's exactly
Right?
where I was going. And he was like a feature on like Kendrick Cole, somebody, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's an existing verse." It's like, no, they created it with AI or something with Biggie or somebody. I am gonna get this wrong, but either way, there was no permission granted.
No, no, no. So that was Drake.
That was Drake. Okay,
That was Drake who used Snoop and Tupac's voice.
that's right.
He basically rapped and ran it through the AI, and it came out sounding like them.
Yeah.
Now, what Kendrick did was actually find unreleased interview
Mm.
transcripts that he actually put on his album. So it was a bit different.
But
It just,
remember, go ahead, Rebecca. Sorry.
and even before the tracks, but remember when they did the holograms of some of the
Yes.
people that left
Yeah,
us?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
maybe it's because we come from a different generation where I am still very connected to like the flesh and like a very tangible experience. I'm curious if kids today, because I mean they don't know what's real versus what's not, it might not affect them the same way. So like remember when it was right after Michael Jackson died, him and Justin Timberlake had a song that hadn't been released yet, and they released it, and I just felt a way about it. Like I was like, oh, he's gone now. Like that just feels so false or not real. Do
Well, and we actually, there was a lot of controversy about whether that was really Michael Jackson.
right?
So, yeah, that project was a little different. But I'm talking about with the permission of the real people,
Yeah.
right? Like even like somebody who might be alive. I'm thinking about like if you think about Bill Withers, his story. Bill Withers
Mm.
retired from the music industry in like 1984. Like he just in the middle of his run, he said, "The hell with this, I'm done with it." But it would have been interesting if like his estate wanted to come back out with a new album all this years later. Maybe he had like old songs that he had written but just never performed. Are there ways to be creative in the way that we create with them? instead
Resurrect all
of
these.
instead of exploitive, right? Like,
Yes.
so there is an exploitive side. The exploitive side of it is, to me, is when um we don't want to hire black actors, or we don't want to hire black voice actors, and we're gonna create a black trained AI. Like,
Right.
that's
Ooh.
exploitive to me, right? Or when you're doing stuff without the permission of estates, that's exploitive to me. But with permission, can we extend some real limitations that exist?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that looks like, because speaking of Drake, and Drake may very well be a leader in this, because Aaliyah is a great example of this. Rest in peace, baby girl. But we won't let her sleep in peace, because we're always bringing a piece of her estate, whether it's approved or not, into current times because of the pop cultural icon that she is for so many of us, and unfortunately due to her early untimely death. So there's a lot of you know uh, emotion behind who would she be? Would this be, and especially in tying with a current obsession with the 90s, right? Like, we that's still going on. So how do we keep her memory alive? But to your point, Corey, it becomes a question of ethics. Does her estate want that memory, knowing that she didn't, she wouldn't be able to, she wasn't the one who was actually singing. She didn't approve it for this particular use. She's not here just on a simple fact of grief. Like, this is an artist whom we made peace with the fact that we lost her early. So how do you grapple with that? And I think that's what's hard for me to wrap my head around, in terms of how an estate could use it, again, with integrity, and that will land well for those of us who, have known an artist to be gone for a certain amount of time. Freddie Mercury is another one that I feel like there's this big, you know, uh, he's an icon. So he's been brought back for concerts, I think, at
Yep.
Woodstock and everything.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how people are immortalized, and if AI will play a huge part in that. And then don't forget Kendrick Lamar's The Heart. Was it part one or part two with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, when he turned into Kobe and Nipsey,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
he morphed
Yeah.
into all of
Hmm.
the people that he mentioned in his lyrics, and it caused a response from Nipsey. I think Lauren London actually responded like, "This is a great exploration of art," but she kept it at that.
Right, but I mean, I feel like those are, to your point, like the guardrails around it. I think the other thing about the desire to resurrect and bring forth the past into the future is, I'm concerned about like real new sounds and new music showing up, right? Like, it can't just be a copy paste and repeat. I think that's like just a challenge of our culture in general. Like, how do we get our arms around uh, Black culture, specifically Black American culture, and how, like, just thinking about the prompts that probably people use to put a little bit more seasoning on their output. Like, I have a person on my team who asked their chat GPT a question and asked it to respond as a Black woman. And then, like, just the prompter that came out, like, how do we teach this machine not to be biased? Or, like, what does it sound like to be a Black woman or to be a particular artist? Like, again, what's the framework around protecting who we are as people start to use it in different areas? Like, just, you were talking about like voiceovers, how easy it is for marketers. Even to this day, I had an account person tell me that their client was like, well, can't we just recast with a different Black person, right? Like that easy, right? It's so
We all sound
flippant.
alike. We all sound alike.
Right? It's totally fine, right? So it's like, even in around what our culture is and how do we add it into the collective AI machine learning, I think there's still a lot, I think, around it for us to really learn and to continue to talk about it. And it's a topic that I think that we should all be talking about all the
For sure.
time. I was at a dinner or a brunch, actually, the Black Cannon, shout out to Alima and Justin Trapp, who are working through Alima's father, who was an amazing film historian here in Detroit. And they've got this amazing catalog of Black film and
Hmm.
just all types of stuff. But we were talking about AI at the table, and I was a little naive about it because, I'm using it to help me with work stuff and strategies. And he tells me, he's a scientist at like U of M, and he was telling me how he had asked it if it could put $1 million in his checking account, and then like he gave the Chat GPT his checking account. Like I hadn't even considered that you would ask Chat GPT crazy things like that.
Yeah.
But like that's like how we have to look at this piece of technology is like the full spectrum of like what it could do amazingly, and then like also thinking about like where it would exploit, or all of those things I think are really important as we move forward, because none of us know. No one knows.
I took a course on Google, and the course was all about how you can train. So um, any AI has limits, right? And the limits are you have to give it the prompts to prompt it to do whatever it does. The way to truly unlock that is to put another AI behind it that as you give it more information, it can help you change the way you prompt it. So now instead of having prompts with limitations, the prompts start to grow the AI brain, and that is backed by another AI that sees the limitations and is filling in the holes.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty crazy. And so imagine if you do that multiple times. So now you have a chain of AI that is training AI that is training AI that is training AI.
So to that point, and then I have a note about fine art, Rebecca, that I want to get your thoughts on. But Corey, to your exact point, so this past Thursday, I went to my first public sector symposium by Meltwater, which is foundationally a media monitoring tool, but they're completely backed by AI and have all of these amazing AI products that they're about to roll out. Without stealing their thunder, we did an exercise with my neighbor next to me who is essentially chief of staff for one of the highest ranking military officials. And he gave it a prompt. And the prompt was, can you essentially tell me the sentiment of, my particular branch, given the most recent events, when it comes to our military. And you gave it a prompt. And so in my mind, I'm rationalizing like, yeah, right. Your output is only as good as your input. So this is what makes me feel safe about AI, but it kept going. Like it came out with the whole dossier about answering his question, and it was like, to follow up today, this is also happened. And then if you want to look at it from this angle, this it just kept going, it kept going, it kept going, it kept going. And Corey, exactly how you explained the back end layers is exactly how she explained too. Like it's not just one, I don't know how to describe it, but one system, if you will. We have layers so that we can
Yeah.
capture a wider coverage in terms of inputs or hypotheticals, like what make it smarter essentially.
Yep.
And all of us were just kind of blown away in terms of how it fed itself with different source services or sources. And another thing is one of the biggest source was Reddit, which was
Mm.
interesting because Reddit is very opinion based. So it's also interesting in terms of what you get. Again, what is your output? How credible is it? How do you end up using it, and what screens would you apply in order to make sure that what you're providing is a credible piece of communication. And then the other piece that I had about fine art. So Rebecca, to your point about protection, it the thing that does concern me about AI is we're already in this world where art just passes hands. You don't know who the artist is. You can't find them. Perhaps they're deceased, or perhaps they're even just detached from previous work, but they don't get the credit. They don't get the rights. They don't get the value or the appraisal assigned to it. And now it's just out in public domain. It's just out in the ether and it's there for consumption. It gets passed on. But there's also a lot of, to like the credit of the work that Alima and Justin are doing, there's also all of this work from the past that has also just been lost and maybe even strategically hidden, that is hopefully in the process of being digitized. But once it's digitized, how do we protect it? So that's the biggest thing that I was in a workshop a week ago. I think I was texting you, Rebecca, in the meantime, as I was hearing all these gems. But I thought about like, yes, you can digitize and you can archive it, but then how do you protect it from the hands, on the internet and beyond. I mean, who knows who would have access to it, but that is one big concern coming out of AI, since we're always trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
Another thing that is, you know, hot in the press right now is content creation.
Yeah.
Um, Once again, there's been these threats about TikTok is going away, it's staying, it's back. No, it's not. It's going away again. So there's another threat about the suspension of TikTok. Content creators are running crazy, especially in this economy where it seems like things are a little unstable as far as like trying to get 9 to 5s. Content creation seems like a safe space, a place where you have a built-in audience. All you have to do is feed it. But if you take away the platforms, suddenly there could be a big problem. So what do you guys think about what's going on there?
It's so hard to, like, they just turn it off and then do you jump to a different platform? I feel like I haven't heard any conversations about protecting content the way that like the first ripple effect happened when they were like, everybody was crying on Instagram and pointing you to their YouTube channel or to go over there. Sometimes I wonder if apathy sometimes sets in because it's like, maybe it won't happen again. Almost as like, let's just go back as business as usual. I don't know. It hasn't, at least in my algorithm, it hasn't been as loud as it was the first time around. Um, I would still say that you should probably, for whatever brand you work on, if you're a content creator, you should probably have multiple platforms to support, and you will need an exit strategy. I feel like that's also a smart thing to do is to figure out, well, what happens if all of the lights were turned off? And like, how do we move
That
forward?
part. Yeah.
Right.
I
And I don't think, yeah, go ahead.
I just went to see Tony Baker like I don't know
It's so
2 weeks
funny.
ago, and and mainly I only knew because I follow him on Instagram. He's like, "Yo, I'm in Dallas, come see me," and we like went to see him. You know what I'm saying? So, um, if you took that away from him, would I be at that show? Probably not.
Right.
I wouldn't have been there. Like he wouldn't have got that money. Like so, I totally get it's more than just clicks for some of these people. It's more than just views and just follows. So yeah, I think the people who own the platforms now understand how big the money is, and they are leveraging, and some of the leveraging is political, and some of the leveraging, like I heard a thing where it was about this hypothetical, like if Zuckerberg just showed up and said 299 for your if you want to keep your Facebook a month, would you pay it? And a lot of
Not
people
my face,
wouldn't, but
not Facebook, but for, I mean, Instagram is owned by Facebook by Meta.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
I
so
would
say
pay for
any of
it.
them, right? But would you pay it? And I honestly think people would. I think they would. I think it's such a part of life and happiness, and that,
Community.
like, yeah, community. I think if you took it away from people, I think people would pay money to have it.
I
And
mean,
I
we
think
pay
that might
$20 a month to stream every freaking platform. I mean,
so think
Hulu,
about,
who
I
would,
think there are I think I heard something like there are 3 point something billion people on Facebook or something, maybe more than that. So if that all of a sudden is $3 a month, that's crazy.
and like just greed again, it's just like how much do we, that apathy, like, do we just don't care anymore that one is winning and the rest are losing? Especially like you think about paying 2.99 for information that's not like, I'm not sure if it's real or not, like the integrity of the information. Like I think that becomes more difficult. It'll be interesting to see what they, like, now that all these tech bros are in, like, really embedded into the government. I don't know if you guys ever saw this movie called The Circle. its premise was like almost if it was a Facebook, right? It was like a major platform, and this young girl goes to work there. And I can vouch for working in tech. Like you get there, and like the first few weeks, you drink the Kool-Aid, and like, and there are really fucking brilliant people there. So like, I'm not saying that it's not like they build quickly, they write well. Like my business acumen, my writing, my ability to collaborate just was exponential spending some time inside of the Microsoft world. But in this movie, it ends up this circle or this quote unquote Facebook platform ends up taking over all of our daily tasks, all the way down to voting. And so knowing that these six people on the planet are really responsible for all of our choices, because essentially they are, like, not to get too political, but like even in here in Michigan, a very Muslim community voted against their themselves and their community based on these ads that they were getting through Facebook. Like it was so targeted and so wrong. Like the reality is just getting really difficult. So like now you tell me that I have to pay $3 a month, but then also the data says that like people aren't watching the news either. So it's like I don't know about you, but I'm sure your parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles. My mom watches Rachel Maddow every night.
Mine too.
Like that
Yes.
is her source of truth. And I think that that's probably also too that comes to it's like you start purchasing these platforms, but I imagine that there will be a cover charge for these experiences where people are just going to be completely lost and void of
And the
truth.
creators, even, right? Like, think about it. They haven't really been taxed by any of these platforms. So when is that moment coming where they start to say, think about it. If I have a barbershop and you want to cut hair in my barbershop, you pay me to cut hair in this chair. They haven't done any of that yet.
Okay, well, where they do it though is when you want to monetize your page, like on Instagram, for example. I had this little
Okay.
store for a little while when I was in Chicago, and you literally can pull in all of your inventory. You can sell through there, like literally purchase one click away through your Instagram, right? However, on your personal Instagram, if you have made or posted certain things that they find against community, whatever, you will
Oh.
find yourself in a place where you won't be able to monetize or boost a a
Mm.
post. So, I mean, I'm extra black, superty blackety black black.
Right,
So,
right,
like, if
right,
you
right,
follow me
right.
on Instagram, I talk a lot of right. They come. I can't
That's
monetize
where they
on.
get you. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
where they get you.
I also think that there's going to be a point, to our earlier conversation about economic performance, what it means to the consumer, and what role social media plays in that. The attention economy is real. And that's how these content creators have been able to build their livelihoods around one single platform. But the reality is that they don't own that data. They don't own their list. And so, Corey, to your point, the moment that switch is flipped, then they'll have to figure out whether they're going to stay or they're going to go, and then they might be backed in the corner where they will have to pay to play in order to get the return that they once had, or at least a portion of it. I also think, coming from a company where email was our main product, we're going back to the basics, right? Because even though content creators are on TikTok, even though the TikTok algorithm is better than the previously mentioned platforms, they're already not seeing the returns that they're used to seeing. And if the economy goes where it's going, brands are not going to be able to pay them, right, as many as they once did as well. They're going to have to figure out how to own and sell their own lists. And I think platforms like Substack, maybe even Google, might tap back in and say, hey, here's where you could return home, essentially, and rebuild your community off of the platforms that kind of have you by the throat. So I think that there's going to be an opportunity soon to return to the fundamentals, whether it be Square, get your email, list on the back end. What is it? Monkey Chimp or Mailchimp? Sorry.
Mail, yeah.
Um, if I were them, I would get ready because, Substack, if Substack ends up being the leading platform a migration from Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok over there, then we run into the same problem a couple years further down the line. We're going to have to figure out a way to own our stuff. But I think that's the exit strategy, Rebecca, that you mentioned for content creators to figure out how they can survive this change and this shift and still protect the coins in their pockets, especially when brands more than likely at some point are going to pull back because they can't pay top dollar for Pond's face wipes anymore. They're going to be able to they're going to have to say, well, we can get 5 influencers, not 50. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of the content creators. I feel like they're already hurting. I hope the people at TikTok, the good employees at TikTok, have a bar somewhere in there because I feel like they've been going through this loop for I don't know how long. Jobs have been on the line. People have been scared about whether or not what the real reality for the company is. But we have yet to really. I haven't seen any data, unfortunately, that really has quantified the contributions that content creators make to this economy. But I'm sure it's a lot. And once they're hit, we're all hit.
And I think it's so hard too because it's like this really just started growing, like living in this very digital world, like over the last 10 years, like this very social, like what are we doing with these platforms? So it's like, again, I can't tell you what's around the corner, when it was TV, when it was radio, when it was print, when it was out of home. It was very easy to understand the data, the markets, like all of that stuff. It's just so hard to move around. Not the same thing, but a similar like exit strategy, or like how do you stay on top of your things, like with all of the DEI rollbacks, especially around like Target, thinking about the young woman that owns like the Lip Bar here in
Yep.
Detroit,
Yep.
right? Like what's, once you've plugged into some of these major, I mean, they're like super starships, right? You plug yourself in there and like, your distribution is there. How do you stay nimble as a Black brand in all of these spaces when, at the end of the day, if Facebook or any of those places decide to monetize or say that, yes, it'll hit the white creators or the majority, but we always get hit harder because it's always harder for us to kind of move in those spaces. But I think understanding or being nimble, especially for Black people, we thrive. I mean, come on, we are the future. Like no one in our ancestors knew that we would be able to get through it. So like I do know that whatever it is, however we push through, the most innovative ideas in terms of how we use these platforms, how we use this technology. Um, to be honest with you, a lot of that will come from our communities because we are so very creative with very little.
Yeah. So, these are strange times. We are, I think, as a Black community, dealing with where to shop, where not to shop. We are dealing with, all these changes happening in government, how it's going to affect our livelihoods and advertising. We're sitting around waiting for the other shoe to drop regarding what's going on with clients, how it's going to affect us internally. Do you guys have any, and we just talked about the content creators. So you guys have any last words to people out there who are feeling overwhelmed, uh, very unsure about, what's going to happen next?
What you got, Dej? Give the people a word.
Okay. So I think my word is, first of all, take each day at a time. Be easy with yourself. We are dealing with a lot, whether we are on the jobless side or on the job side. Um, so I just want to encourage everyone to be easy with themselves. I think, Rebecca, you said at the very beginning that these times are not normal. We haven't seen the industry look like this. And we thought 2008 was bad. But we haven't seen the industry look like how it looks today. So understand that it's a shock for all of us, and be easy with yourself. And the second thing is to be agile. I pivoted from agency. I am now on the county government side. I don't I will not invite anyone to the county government side. I mean, it's fine. But I say that to say be open to what career looks like in the meantime. It doesn't mean that it's forever. It does that mean that you've, said goodbye to what was in the past. It just means that you need to protect yourself and your family and your livelihoods today. So stay agile. The thing about us in advertising, we are smart. We are smart. We are little Swiss Army knives for a whole bunch of people. You can call us about strategy. You can call us about creative. You can call us about reputation management. You can call us about whatever it is, and we have an answer. Everybody can't do that. So also remember your magic and the value that you bring to the table, despite whatever this industry looks like, because it's been fickle for a long time now. So just remember what you bring to the table. And last but not least, lean into community. The thing I mentioned, volunteering, I have been showing up a lot in the DMV community simply because regardless of what happens on the news, whatever happens at the White House, people still need to be fed. People still need to be listened to and heard. People still need to line dance. People need to know where them fans at. So I want to be there and not deal with the doom scrolling of today. So just hang in there, lean on each other. Remember, we all we got.
Rebecca?
That was beautiful. I would say apply pressure. I feel like we have been in more difficult situations in the past, and to just buckle up, get the fundamentals. Dave, you talked a little bit about just even from a marketing perspective, being able to quickly pivot on a dime in the most uncomfortable situations, I think has definitely been our strength as a community. Like you, I feel the same. The more we can work together on things that continue to show our great value, I think is kind of where I'm trying to lean into. Um, and again, at the end of the day, we are diamonds in a very difficult universe. But I am inspired every day by all of the things that we are doing. Again, that AI video that Corey shared, it's you all should go check it out. It is wild. So while the world is definitely on fire, it's not the first time. So I just, again, as Daidria said, just, again, dig in, take really good care of yourself and your and others around, and stick to the basics. And dude, save your money. Make sure you're putting in that 401k. Think about your future self.
Whenever tough times hit, I go back to a piece of advice my dad gave me. And he said, life is about two things: accepting the realities and adjusting to them. Accepting the new reality can be emotional, it can cause a lot of personal upheaval. But once you accept it, then it's time to man up and figure it the fuck out. Right. And that is the adjusting to it part. So what I love about the history of Black people is whenever the new predicament happens, we accept the new reality and we always adjust to it. And thank you all for joining in for another episode of Visible Soldiers Podcast featuring Daidria Grayson.
DJ
Um,
Grayson.
do us a favor, subscribe, like, follow, share any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you
Peace.
all.